For many years now, the conversation has centered on Americans leaving home, leaving cities, leaving states, leaving any place where the cost of living suddenly doubled compared to just 5 years ago. Housing costs surged, health insurance became a burden, and life slowly began to revolve more around keeping up than actually living. But while most attention has been fixed on those loud and visible departures, another story has been quietly unfolding. A story that moves more softly, almost politely. No advertising, no slogans, no promises of reinvention. Just a handful of smaller countries' names that rarely dominate big conversations, silently opening their doors to Americans. Larger countries usually receive most of the attention in discussions like this. But perhaps it's time to look in a different direction. To look at countries that don't need to impress, that don't need to prove anything. Places where the cost of living doesn't feel like a punishment, where healthcare doesn't require taking on a second job just to feel secure, and where governments don't make grand promises, but instead ask one very specific question. Can you support yourself? These are not dream destinations, and they are not playgrounds for social media influencers. They are not built to sell fantasy lifestyles or glossy success stories. These are countries that want people to come and live long-term, bring stable income, follow the rules, and not need to be rescued every time rent goes up. So today, we're talking about small countries that are actively welcoming Americans. Countries that are quietly competing for U.S. citizens who are ready to live abroad, retire overseas, or simply choose a place with a lighter cost of living than the United States without feeling like they've been left behind. Number 5. North Macedonia. The first thing most Americans notice when they arrive in North Macedonia is how quiet it feels. Not empty, not lifeless, just calm. Cities don't compete for your attention. Streets don't feel like they're trying to sell you something, and daily life moves without urgency. It feels like an older version of Europe, one that hasn't been fully commercialized or polished for outsiders. Nothing here is designed to impress you, and that's exactly what gives the place its character. North Macedonia isn't opening its doors out of optimism or trend chasing. It's doing so out of practicality. The population has been slowly shrinking, younger people continue to leave for larger European economies, and the country needs stability more than growth headlines. What they're looking for isn't workers to fill offices or factories. They're looking for people who arrive with their own income, who don't need local jobs, and who can quietly plug into the local economy without creating pressure or disruption. For Americans, long-term residence here follows a clear path. It's not fast, and it's not casual, but it is understandable. If you can show income from outside the country, pensions, remote work is a route to stay long-term. The paperwork takes time, and no one rushes you through it, but the rules are laid out plainly. If you meet them, things move forward. If you don't, they don't. There's very little guesswork involved. Daily life in North Macedonia is shaped by simplicity. Coffee is cheap and social. People walk more than they drive, not because they're making a lifestyle statement, but because most things are close enough. Shopping is practical. You buy what you need, not what you're told you should want. There's very little pressure to upgrade, replace, or constantly improve your life. For many Americans, that absence of consumer noise is noticeable almost immediately. It's common to see older locals sitting outside cafes for hours talking quietly, watching the street, doing nothing that looks productive by American standards. But that's the point. Life here isn't measured by output, it's measured by rhythm. You wake up, you eat, you walk, you meet people, and the day unfolds without demanding explanations. In terms of cost, North Macedonia remains one of the more affordable places in Europe. Many people live comfortably on $600 to $900 a month, especially outside the capital. Public health care is basic but functional, and private care is inexpensive by American standards. Most routine medical needs are handled quickly and without financial stress, though serious procedures sometimes require travel to neighboring countries. Of course, this kind of life comes with trade-offs. Infrastructure can be uneven. Some systems feel dated, and this is not a country built for people who expect American-style convenience on demand. Things take time. Repairs happen when they happen. Services don't apologize for moving slowly. But for Americans who are tired of living inside constant pressure to earn more, spend more, optimize more, North. Macedonia offers something rare. A place where you're not expected to impress anyone, where having enough is actually enough, and where life doesn't feel like it's racing ahead without you. Number 4. Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia and Herzegovina is not the kind of place that tries to win you over. There's no first impression pitch, no effort to charm, no sense that anyone is waiting to see what you think. Life here unfolds slowly, plainly, and without decoration. Streets feel lived in, not curated. Cafes aren't styled for photos. Buildings carry their age openly. Everything about the place feels real in a way that's becoming rare. For many Americans, that first impression can be disarming. Bosnia doesn't sparkle, it doesn't rush, and it doesn't pretend to be something it's not. What you see is what you get. And for some people, especially those worn down by constant performance and pressure, that honesty is the appeal. Bosnia's interest in welcoming foreigners isn't driven by ambition or reinvention. It's driven by economics. The country doesn't need mass immigration. It doesn't need crowds or rapid growth. What it needs is steady income flowing into local communities. People who arrive with their own financial support live quietly and spend money locally without putting strain on jobs or housing. Retirees, remote earners, and self-sufficient residents fit that picture well. For Americans, long-term residence here is possible if you can prove stable income. There's no requirement to invest large sums, buy property, or start a business. The process is paperwork heavy, but the expectations are modest. Show that you can support yourself, maintain health insurance, and follow the rules, and there is a path to staying. It's not fast, and it's rarely smooth, but it is accessible. Daily life in Bosnia moves at a pace that feels unfamiliar to many Americans at first. Coffee is not a beverage here, it's an event. People sit for hours, sometimes saying very little, sometimes talking through an entire afternoon. Nobody checks the time. Nobody rushes the conversation. The point isn't efficiency. The point is presence. You'll notice that people are friendly, but not invasive. Locals are open to conversation, curious about why you're there, happy to help if you ask, but they don't pry. They don't hover. They don't feel the need to manage your experience. You're allowed to exist without explanation, and that alone can feel like a luxury. In terms of cost, Bosnia remains one of the most affordable places in Europe. Many people live comfortably on $550 to $850 a month, especially outside major tourist areas. Rent is low, food is inexpensive, and daily expenses rarely feel stressful. Healthcare is affordable as well. Public hospitals or basic private clinics are inexpensive, and while the system isn't cutting edge, most routine care is easy to access without financial strain. But Bosnia is not without its trade-offs. Government systems move slowly. Processes stall without warning. Timelines are vague at best. If you're someone who needs things done quickly, clearly, and on schedule, this place will test your patience. There's no sense of urgency built into daily life, and that doesn't change just because you're foreign. Still, for Americans who are exhausted by constant acceleration, by deadlines, notifications, and the feeling that life is always behind schedule, Bosnia offers something different. A slower rhythm, lower expectations, and a quiet reminder that life doesn't have to be impressive to be meaningful. Number 3. Portugal, Azores. The Azores don't announce themselves, they don't try to compete with the mainland, and they don't chase attention. The first feeling most Americans have when they arrive is isolation, but not the uncomfortable kind. It's the kind that settles you down, surrounded by the Atlantic with constant shifts of rain clouds and green hills. Life here feels insulated from the noise of the modern world. The islands are quiet, damp, lush, and largely untouched by mass tourism. Nothing feels staged. Nothing feels rushed. Unlike many island destinations, the Azores haven't been overbuilt or over-promoted. There are no crowds pouring in and out every season, no pressure to entertain outsiders. What exists here is everyday life continuing at its own pace. Fishing boats still matter. Weather still dictates the rhythm of the day. And nature is not something you visit, it's something you live inside of. The reason the Azores are quietly welcoming long-term residents is simple. The population is aging. Younger generations often leave for mainland Portugal or elsewhere in Europe. The regional government understands that the future of the islands depends on people who stay, not tourists, who pass through, but residents who put down roots, participate in daily life, and contribute steadily to the local economy. For Americans, residency here doesn't require reinventing the wheel. The Azores follow Portugal's national residency system, which means you apply through a Portuguese residence visa. You don't need to live in Lisbon. You don't need to compete in expensive housing markets. Many residents choose the Azores specifically to avoid that. As long as you can demonstrate stable income from outside Portugal and meet basic requirements, living here long-term is a realistic option. Daily life on the islands is defined by restraint. There's less shopping, less upgrading, less chasing convenience. People spend more time outdoors, more time walking, and more time adjusting their plans around the weather. Days feel longer, not because there's more to do, but because there's less urgency. Time stretches, mornings blur into afternoons, and no one seems bothered by that. In terms of cost, the Azores sit in a middle ground. Many people live comfortably on roughly $900 to $1,200 a month, depending on location and lifestyle. Healthcare follows European Union standards, with public services that are reliable and affordable, and private options available without the price shock Americans are used to. Routine care is straightforward, predictable, and rarely stressful. There are, of course, trade-offs. The islands are far from the mainland. Travel takes planning. Options are limited. And if you thrive on nightlife variety or constant stimulation, the Azores will feel too quiet, too repetitive, too small. But for Americans who are worn down by speed saturation and endless choice, the Azores offer something increasingly rare. A life shaped by weather instead of calendars, by nature instead of notifications, and by the quiet understanding that not every place needs to move fast to move forward. Number 2. Panama. Panama doesn't try to seduce you. It doesn't sell romance reinvention or escape. The first impression most Americans have here is how practical everything feels. Life works. Systems make sense. You don't have to decode the culture just to get through the day. It's not flashy, and it's not trying to be. Panama feels built for living, not for performing. That practicality is exactly why Panama has quietly become one of the most welcoming countries for Americans, especially retirees. The government isn't guessing about who it wants. It has been very clear for decades. Panama actively values retirees and long-term residents with stable income. The famous pensionado visa isn't a marketing slogan, it's policy. Discounts, residency benefits, and legal clarity are baked into the system because the economy benefits when people arrive with predictable income and spend it locally. For Americans, the residency process here is one of the simplest in the world. The pensionado visa is widely considered one of the easiest retirement visas available. The requirements are clear. The steps are transparent. There's no need to invest large sums, start businesses, or navigate constantly changing rules. If you meet the income requirement and submit the documents correctly, the process moves forward. It feels administrative, not adversarial. Daily life in Panama is easy to settle into. Many Americans find themselves integrating quickly, not because they're trying to fit in, but because the environment allows it. There are established expat communities, especially in places like Boquete and Coronado, offering familiarity without isolation. You can choose how connected you want to be. Some people build close social circles. Others live quietly. Both options are accepted. In terms of cost, Panama sits comfortably in the middle range. Many retirees live well on roughly $900 to $1,300 a month, depending on location and lifestyle. Healthcare is one of the country's strongest advantages. Private hospitals and clinics are modern, affordable, and widely used by expats. Many doctors are trained in the United States or Europe, and routine care feels professional and predictable without the financial anxiety Americans are used to. Of course, Panama comes with trade-offs. The climate is hot and humid, and that doesn't change with the seasons. Bureaucracy exists even if it's manageable. Things move slower than in the US, and processes sometimes require patience rather than persistence. But for Americans looking for a place where retirement doesn't feel complicated, where the rules are clear, the costs are reasonable, and daily life doesn't require constant adjustment, Panama offers something rare. Not an escape from reality, but a version of reality that's simply easier to live with. Number 1. Ecuador. Ecuador is the kind of place where people notice how they feel before they notice where they are. For many Americans, the first sensation is relief. Life feels lighter here. There's less pressure, fewer invisible expectations, and a sense that no one is measuring your pace. People smile easily. Conversations start without suspicion. And day-to-day life doesn't feel like something you have to brace yourself for. That sense of ease isn't accidental. Ecuador has made a deliberate decision to welcome retirees and long-term residents. The country understands that its low cost of living can be a strength, not a weakness. Attracting people with steady retirement income helps local economies without straining jobs or housing markets. It's a practical exchange. Retirees bring predictable income, and Ecuador offers affordability, warmth, and a slower rhythm of life. For Americans, residency here is refreshingly straightforward. Ecuador's retirement visa is clearly defined and accessible, with income requirements that are among the lowest in the region. There's no pressure to invest large sums or navigate complex loopholes. If you can demonstrate a modest, stable monthly income and complete the paperwork, the path to legal residency is clear. It feels designed to be understood, not resisted. Daily life in Ecuador revolves around people more than schedules. Food is inexpensive and central to social life. Meals are shared. Markets are busy. Conversations happen naturally and often. You'll find yourself talking to neighbors, shop owners, and strangers in ways that feel increasingly rare elsewhere. There's a strong sense that life is meant to be lived outward, not inward. In terms of cost, Ecuador remains one of the most affordable options in the Western Hemisphere. Many people live comfortably on roughly $700 to $1,000 a month, depending on location and lifestyle. Healthcare is another major advantage. Private clinics are widely available. Doctors are accessible, and the quality of care is strong relative to cost. Routine medical visits don't feel financially risky, and serious care remains far more affordable than in the United States. Of course, Ecuador is not perfect. Systems can feel inconsistent. Bureaucracy doesn't always move logically. And cultural adjustment is real. Things don't operate on American timelines, and expectations around punctuality, communication, and service can require patience. But for Americans who are ready to trade precision for warmth, efficiency for connection, and pressure for presence, Ecuador offers something rare. A place where life feels human again, where having enough is enough, and where the idea of slowing down doesn't feel like giving up, but like finally arriving. None of the countries we talked about here are paradise. No place is perfect. No place promises a life without problems. Every choice comes with trade-offs, limitations, and realities you have to learn to live with. But they all share one thing in common. They don't demand that you keep running. They don't ask you to constantly prove your worth. They don't measure life by speed, productivity, or how busy you look. In these places, slowing down isn't treated as failure. It's simply another way to live. And maybe the most important question isn't how far you could go or where life costs less. Maybe it's how much more you really need before enough finally feels like enough. If you didn't need more and only needed to slow down a little, where would you choose to live? If this video made you pause for a moment, consider hitting like to support the channel. If you're interested in more stories about living lighter, feel free to subscribe. And let us know in the comments which country made you think the most.